Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. We are officially live. My name is Matt Morris. I am your host. We are live right now on Rumble at Matt Morris TV, as well as on YouTube at Matt Morris TV. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 24 hours or so, Elon Musk, who is that is my own broadcast on my own cell phone, barking up. Unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk over the last 24 hours or so has been pretty much going scorched earth, dropping bombshells all over X.com, formerly known as Twitter, talking about something that I frankly never really thought that I would hear him talk about, but he is going all in on this one specific topic. And we're going to take a look at everything he has said today. I think you folks are going to like this. We also have some huge immigration updates from the Trump administration that came out just a couple of hours ago, namely from Stephen Miller, who is a crowd favorite, talking about the current process of getting rid of illegal aliens, the ways in which the Trump administration is kind of escalating the heat, kicking things into overdrive. And then at the end of the show, if you guys stick around till the very end, I also have a special surprise for all of you if you stick around till the end. So make sure to do that. Everybody, make sure to like and subscribe. Today's going to be one hell of a show, and we're going to kick this off with what Elon Musk has been talking about for the last couple hours. Ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk, all day yesterday, all day today, has been talking about white people. He has been talking about white guilt, and why white guilt is a bad thing, and why white people need to be proud about who they are, about their culture, about their ethnicity, and about their heritage. And so, like I said, I never really thought that Elon Musk would become the champion of white people around the world, but that seems to be the path that he is going down. And so we are going to take a look at everything that he has been saying. First off, he reposted earlier this morning a very curious post here on X. He said, "No more white guilt. No more white guilt." And I don't know about you. I'm 31. Maybe there's a generational difference here. I'm a little bit younger than I think many people in the audience. I was raised in an extreme environment of white guilt. I'm 31. My entire K through 12 public school education, kindergarten through high school, it was pretty much, really there was one big message that was beat into my brain for 12 years. It was that white people are kind of irredeemably evil. White people are uniquely evil. White people are uniquely and solely responsible for all of the problems around the world, slavery, racism, etc., etc., etc. Man, I just can't do anything right today. My webcam has been off this entire time. I was even making eye contact with you guys. Here I am. And, I think a lot of young people, especially a lot of young white Americans, have just said, enough is enough. I'm sick of being called a demon. I'm sick of being called demonic. I'm sick of being blamed for all of the problems all over the country, let alone the entire world. Enough is enough. And so Elon Musk himself, he's actually saying, you know what? I agree. No more white guilt. And he reposted this very interesting thread. And it's a long one. And so we're going to read through this here. White guilt is dead. This is what Elon Musk himself reposted. White guilt is dead. Gen Z is done apologizing for history that they didn't write. Now, a little bit of a background. I am about as young of a millennial as you can possibly be. I think the oldest Gen Z is 29. I am 31. I am almost Gen Z. I'm the youngest millennial you can possibly be, just about. For years, young people in the West, especially white men, have been told that they are the problem. That's my experience. They've been blamed for colonialism, slavery, inequality, and systems they didn't build and never even benefited from. In classrooms or Netflix, in video games, in HR training sessions, in political speeches, the message has been constant. If you are white, especially if you are a male and straight, sit down, shut up, and feel bad about it. I remember being it was 2010. I was in my high school English class, and my high school English teacher, she thought it would be funny to spend the entire day. It was a 45-minute high school class. She spent the entire 45 minutes on the internet, and she broadcast it up on the front board, the whiteboard in the front of class, so everybody could see it. And she was browsing some website called Things White People Do. thingswhitepeopledo.com or something like that. And I'll never forget, this was in public school. This was an advanced placement English class, thingswhitepeopledo.com or something like that. And it was like, you know, wear flannel jackets everywhere. Things white people do. They bring umbrellas with them everywhere they go. Things white people do. They always have a kayak on the top of their SUV. Things white people do. They always put mayonnaise on their crackers. Or it's like, things white people do. They never spice their food. And, you know, I've thought about this. I'm just thinking back on this. And there's a lot of examples of things like this that I experienced back in school. But it's like, that's a little bit weird. You know, you would never in a public school setting, you would never browse. You would never have a teacher browse thingsblackpeopledo.com. Thingsblackpeopledo.com. Play basketball. Eat fried chicken. Like, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, hold up. Wait a minute. Whoa. Racism alert. Things, you know, Asian people do. Get an A+ on their math test or like whatever. You would never do this for any other race, but you know, it's white people, so it's all good. Anyway, a little anecdote from growing up. We'll continue reading this here. But something's breaking and it's not subtle anymore. Gen Z is done. They're tired of being treated like the villain in a movie they weren't even alive to watch, let alone direct. Tired of being told they're privileged while working 3 jobs and getting shut out of conversations because of their skin color. Tired of being insulted, shamed, and then expected to smile through all of it to avoid being called racist, fascist, or worse. I'll tell you something. This is, I think, true for multiple generations now, most certainly my generation. Every single step of the way as a young white person, namely a young white man, you are dealing with, you're trying to get into the university system, you're applying to a good school. Well, they have racially based affirmative action quotas. And you had a good GPA, but guess what? They've got too many white people, so they're going to bring in a non-white person that has a worse GPA than you in accordance with racially based affirmative action programs, which has now been deemed unconstitutional, by the way. Thank God, it should be unconstitutional, but that was the law of the land until up about like a year ago or less. And then on top of that, let's say you did get into a good school, you get your degree, you get out, you're trying to get a job. Well, now you've got to go through the DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Hiring Human Resources Program. Well, okay, you did go to a good school, you got a good GPA, you've got good extracurriculars, whatever, etc. But once again, we have too many white people working in this business. We need more non-white people, DEI, so we're not going to hire you. And so it's like, just, you know, the point of this article here is, yeah, I think a lot of people have just kind of had enough. I think so. They've watched woke institutions push a narrative that celebrates every identity except theirs. They've seen how showing pride in their own background gets you canceled, while every other group is encouraged to embrace their traits. Similarly, you can't help but notice, if you're a black person and you say black pride, it's like, yeah, good for you. If you're a Latino and you say, yeah, Latin pride, La Raza, it's like, yeah, good for you, that's fine. Asian pride, Jewish pride, whatever, it's all good. But the second you say white pride, that is a problem. The second a white guy puts up his fist, if the Jewish guy or the black guy or the Latino guy or the Asian guy, if they put up their fist and say whatever pride, it is uniquely a problem, exclusively a problem if the white guy puts up his fist and says white pride. That is the problem. And so I think young people especially have started, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? This seems to be a little bit hypocritical. Something is going on here. That's a little bit weird. They know the game. Say something uncomfortable, get smeared as far right. Ask a question, get branded as problematic. Breathe the wrong way and you're accused of hate. So they're tuning it all out and speaking up anyway. Some are becoming openly conservative. Others are just refusing to play along. And yeah, some are going too far, getting pulled into genuinely hateful ideologies, not because they started with hate, but because they were pushed there by a culture that told them they had no place unless they apologized for existing. That is the real danger. Push hard enough, shame deep enough, and silence long enough, and you'll create a backlash you can't control. I really do think that this is a true phenomenon. You have an entire generation of young white Americans that have been told every single step of the way, you are evil, you are evil, you are demonic, you are akin to Satan, you are irredeemably bad. You 17-year-old young white kid, you are responsible for all of the problems in the world. And I think what you're seeing, for better or for worse, is an entire generation of young white kids that are saying, you know what? Okay, I'm going to be evil. All right. If everywhere I look, if I'm being ostracized and critiqued and pecked by every single person I talk to, the institutions, the media, the teachers, whatever, other kids in my class, you know what? Then so be it. Then so be it. I guess I'm going to be the evil guy now. And then they lean into that because that sort of identitarianism is the only place that isn't telling them they're evil. It just kind of logically follows. It goes on to say, no one should feel guilty for the color of their skin. No one should feel ashamed for what their ancestors did. Being white isn't a crime. It's not a confession. It's not something that needs to be explained. White guilt is dead. Gen Z killed it. No amount of hashtags, lectures, or forced diversity seminars is going to bring it back. And so this is what Elon Musk, earlier today, he reposted this article. That's why we read that. He said, no more white guilt. And I can give you two very recent pertinent examples of the degree to which this is true. And it is true. This era of white guilt is over. Let me give you two recent examples. You might have heard of this individual, a woman named Shiloh Hendricks, who was verbally harassed by a Somalian immigrant on a playground while she was taking care of her kids a couple months ago. And then she, in response, called the Somalian immigrant an N-word. She called him the N-word multiple times, in fact. And then there was a hate mob. The video went viral. Everybody saw it. People all over the internet said, oh my gosh, we need to destroy this woman's life, etc., etc. And what happened was a huge number of white individuals around the country, maybe the world, said, you know what? No, we are going to support this woman. She's raised $833,000. $833,000 from white people. I mean, people are still donating. 5 hours ago, God bless you. Keep fighting the good fight. Keep fighting for truth. And this happened again, similarly, 2 or 3 days ago, another actually similar incident where a white woman was working at Cinnabon in Wisconsin, I believe. And some Somalians came up inside of the shopping mall where the Cinnabon was located, and they were harassing her, telling her that she has to put on a hijab. They said, why do you like to show your skin? You need to put on a hijab. And this white woman, she also snapped and said, I am a racist and you are. She started saying the N-word. And she started saying the N-word. Similarly, in the last 3 days, she has raised $138,000. It's been 3 days. And so if you want to talk about white guilt being dead, I think that is exactly what we are seeing. I think so. I think Elon Musk is right about that. He went on to say earlier today, again, another individual post, Elon Musk said, no more anti-white propaganda. He doesn't like the anti-white propaganda either. And in this case, he was responding to a video that Matt Walsh, you know who that is, posted on Twitter. I'll go ahead and play the video for you folks.
Why was Carmelo Anthony allowed to receive his diploma? He killed an unarmed white kid and then lied to police about stashing his knife in the bleachers. And it seems like the kind of thing that should disqualify you from graduating. I don't know. And while we're at it, what evidence was there that Derek Chauvin actually killed George Floyd? Even the jury told CNN they didn't actually think Chauvin killed Floyd. Yeah. They convicted Chauvin because, in their view, he didn't demonstrate enough compassion to a man who was clearly overdosing of his own accord. And while we're at it, why were the prosecutors allowed to lie to the jury about the relative amount of fentanyl in Floyd's system by comparing his blood samples to samples from overdose victims that were taken long after their deaths. Until we get serious answers to these questions, don't talk to us about the Cinnabon woman who had a bad day. Okay, she's not a hero or martyr, but she is the predictable result of decades of anti-white propaganda that has destroyed far too many lives. And like the Cinnabon woman, we are all tired of it.
We are all tired. It feels, I'm looking around. I called up all my white friends. I said, hey, yo, what's up, Whitey? I said, hey, Whitey, I've got a couple white friends. I said, hey, I'm looking to interview a white person. How do you feel about all of this? And every single white person I have spoken to, they all said, I've had it up to here. Every single white person I've talked to have said, I've had it up to here. They're sick of being blamed and demonized. Everyone's fingers are pointed at them. They said, listen, I've had enough. It's getting, enough is enough. And so Elon Musk, he said, no more anti-white propaganda. Seems like a lot of people just have a little bit of fatigue here. Elon Musk went on then to respond to a different post earlier today on X. He said, it is deeply weird that the absolute top priority for a lot of American and European politicians is bringing in millions of unvetted third world immigrants. They could have shut down right-wing populism entirely by compromising on this issue, but they refuse. And so Elon Musk responded to this. Before we take a look at Elon Musk's response to this post here, I do want to say real fast, folks, if you enjoy the broadcasts, please do me a human-to-human favor. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button, especially on YouTube. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. The more of you guys that hit the like button and subscribe and drop a comment, everything, it helps pump the video out. We get more people in here. We continue to spread the message. So everybody, the best thing you can do is hit that like button right now as a little reminder. Thank you very much. Elon Musk, he responded. Got to get rid of this pop-up. Once you understand the incentive, the reason for this behavior becomes obvious. They are importing a left voting bloc that depends on government handouts. A prominent example of this is in America is Ilhan Omar and her Somali voting bloc in Minnesota, an area which used to be primarily Nordic German. Importing voters is a certain path to a single party supermajority and has already happened at the state level in California and in New York. Very true. It also explains why those states have banned voter ID in order to accelerate a permanent socialist majority, supermajority, destroying any semblance of democracy. We stand on the precipice of disaster and end to America. You know, I've talked about this a lot on this show, but really what has happened is that the far left, they have realized that their political policies, their platform is so intolerable to the sensibilities, it is repulsive to the sensibilities of actual authentic Americans that none of us are going to vote for what they want. And so the far left, rather than shifting their policies and saying, okay, nobody wants what we are offering, nobody's going to vote for our platform here, rather than shift the platform or adopt new, more tolerable policies, they've just said, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to replace the Americans that don't want us. We are just going to import immigrants from the third world that will vote for us. And the reason why they will vote for us is because they're going to be poor and helpless, and we're going to make them dependents on the state and federal government. They're going to be dependent for food stamps and welfare programs and housing assistance. They wouldn't dare vote against us because if they do, they're going to lose all of their free government handouts. And so rather than try to appeal to us actual Americans, the far left now, really the entire Democrat Party, they've just said, you know what? We have lost the battle with Americans, with actual Americans. So now we're just going to import tens of millions of third world voters. We're just going to replace Americans. And perhaps what is the sickest component of this entire agenda that the far left has is that in the process, their goal is to make you, actual American, me, actual American, pay for it. They want us to pay for our own replacements. They want your lives to be miserable. They want you to not be able to afford a house or to put your kids through college or to get married and have a stay-at-home wife or to raise 1, 2, 3, 4, God knows how many kids. They don't want any of that to be affordable for you. What they want to do is tax you to high hell, take your money, make your life insufferable, and then give that money, take it out of your pocket and give it to the immigrants from the third world. You're going to pay for your own replacement. That is their objective, okay? And so Elon Musk is totally right. Speaking about voter ID, Elon Musk earlier today, he also said, democracy is being destroyed. And he said this in response to an image of voter ID laws all around the country. The map below details voter ID requirements by state. And so you can see the gray, look at the gray states here. No ID required in California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably 12 or 15. Could be 15 individual states here where, in fact, I'll tell you something about a year ago, I went in to vote in Washington state. I don't live there now, but I did. I voted in Washington state about a year ago, but even worse, I had to register. First, I had to register to vote. When I registered to vote in Washington state 12 months ago, something very curious happened. They didn't even ask to see an ID. I was able to register, not just vote. I was able to register to vote, the step before voting, without even showing an ID. I walked in there. In fact, I was curious. I pulled out my ID. I said, hey, do you need to see this? And they said, no, don't worry about it. No, don't worry about it. So I was shocked. So this narrative that there's no voter fraud, we don't need to have voter ID because we don't even have any fraudulent votes. Don't worry about it. Stop asking questions. This is just absurd. This is absurd. And so Elon Musk, now he's going hard on voter fraud. Democracy is being destroyed, he said. Elon Musk responded to another post earlier today. And this post says, Iran has already deported 1.5 million Afghanis in 2025. That's this year. Pakistan has sent back more than 1 million in 2025. While Europe debates diversity and lets them do terrible things, the immigrants do terrible things, that is, other countries carry out mass expulsions in the millions. When a nation wants to protect its people and its borders, it can do so. And Elon Musk responded to that. He said, exactly. If we want mass deportations, if Europe, in this case, wants mass deportations, they can do that. Iran has done it this year. Pakistan has done it this year. America, we are carrying out deportations to some degree this year. Europe has got to get a grip, a big time grip. In fact, that was something we talked about earlier on in today's video. Trump has been going hard on Europe as well, the immigration crisis in Europe as well. Now, Stephen Miller, I said that we have some immigration updates from the Trump administration. Stephen Miller earlier today sort of gave a little media tour. And so I want to play for you some of the highlights of what he had to say about our immigration emergency. Take a look at this.
Clearly, we need to have in this country exactly what President Trump called for, which is that we need a moratorium on immigration from third world countries until we can heal ourselves as a nation, solve our education issues, solve our healthcare issues, our public safety issues, our assimilation issues, our cultural issues. So the 1924 Act is such a good example because we had large-scale immigration from Europe from 1880 to 1920. So in other words, we went from a country that had immigration from part of Europe to immigration from many other parts of Europe. But even other European countries pose enormous stresses on the U.S. system, both economically and in terms of security. There's a lot of crime, a lot of threats to public safety and order, and those were addressed with very strict new immigration quotas. What they don't teach you in school is that from 1920 to 1970, there was negative migration. There was a half century of negative migration. The foreign-born population declined by 40% for half a century. During that same time period, Will, the U.S. population doubled from natural childbirth. That was the cauldron in which a unified shared national identity was formed. They went through a depression together. They went through world wars together. They landed on the moon together. This great period in American history happened at a time when there was negative migration. They don't teach that to our kids in school. And frankly, I would submit very few politicians serving in Congress probably know that, Will.
That's actually impressive. So what is he saying? Between 1920 and 1970, we had net negative migrations. We had people immigrating out of the country. However, for 50 years, and this is during the American Golden Age, everybody says, the 50s, the 60s, it was so great. This is the best America's ever been. We were not only not taking in immigrants, in a net or gross way, but the few immigrants we were taking in were from Europe exclusively, but we had more net migration out. And then on top of that, the United States population still boomed up because we were having babies, we were having kids. We were creating Americans rather than importing people that ended up, I was going to say rather than importing Americans, but is that are we importing Americans right now? Is that really, that's not what I would say. The people we are importing, they don't seem to really be becoming Americans. Importing people, perhaps, but not Americans, third worlders. Stephen Miller goes on to say,
during the civil rights era, and this is the simplest way I can put it, there was a thought in effect, you can go back and you can read the transcripts of the debate at the time, of applying civil rights to immigration policy for the globe, and to create a civil right for people from every part of the world to come to America in ever-growing numbers. And so a system that for years, as you mentioned, had been tightly restricted, suddenly established this global ability of people in every part of the world to come to America, to bring their families to America, and then eventually empty out their entire towns and their entire villages to the United States of America.
Civil rights for the entire world. Civil rights insofar as everybody is welcome into the United States of America. And of course, this is the 1965 Hart-Celler Act, where we tossed out our old immigration policy, which pretty much limited immigration exclusively to Europe. Not pretty much, like literally did limit immigration exclusively to Europe. And this is how we were for 170 years or something like that. It was in 1965 when we started taking in immigrants from all over the world. And you might notice, you can't help but notice, this is kind of when things started going downhill a little bit.
And so what you saw between 1965 and today was the single largest experiment on a society, on a civilization that had ever been conducted in human history. Not just the 76 million immigrants that were brought in, largely from the third world, but their descendants too. So you see with a lot of these immigrant groups, not only is the first generation unsuccessful, again, Somalia is a clear example here, not only is the first generation unsuccessful, but you see persistent issues in every subsequent generation. So you see consistent high rates of welfare use, consistent high rates of criminal activity, consistent failures to assimilate. But this shouldn't be a surprise, Will. It's just common sense.
Well, I'll tell you something here. I'm going to say something maybe a little bit controversial. Generally speaking, assimilation is a lie. Now, of course, we can all point to certain specific examples. I have a friend, I know a guy, he assimilated perfectly. In fact, I have friends. I've got a friend from Iran. He's an Iranian immigrant. And you guys know, I'm pretty critical of immigrants. But this guy, he really has assimilated. Like, honestly, he has, and he's an Iranian guy. And so I think we can all point to somebody, okay, here's an example, exception to the rule, immigrant who has assimilated, seems like he's sort of become an American, but the problem is, this is the problem that needs to be addressed here. For every one immigrant that does ultimately assimilate, seems like there are 99 that don't. And so if we start taking in mass immigration, everybody come on in a very unvetted way, if we're not keeping tabs on who's coming in, it just doesn't really end up working, does it? It doesn't work. And so this is why we can say, generally speaking, in large part, assimilation is a lie. It has not worked. Historically, if you look back through American history, when we talk about assimilation or the melting pot, America's a melting pot, you kind of have to say immigrants from where? Immigrants that are melting into the pot from where? Immigrants that are assimilating into America from where? It's not Somalia. Generally speaking, it's not Iran. It's not Afghanistan. It's not the Congo. It's immigrants from Europe. We can say that as a matter of fact, because that is where literally all of our immigrants came from prior to 1965. Like legislatively, they were all from Europe.
If Somalians cannot make Somalia successful, why would we think that the track record would be any different in the United States? Go third world country by third world country. No one's saying, look, there are people all over the world that are great people. But you look at the society. If Libya keeps failing, if the Central African Republic keeps failing, if Somalia keeps failing, right? If these societies all over the world continue to fail, you have to ask yourself, if you bring those societies into our country and then give them unlimited free welfare, what do we think is going to happen? You're going to replicate the conditions that they left over and over and over again. And we mask the impact of immigration in every public policy issue we discuss. We talk about test scores. Well, if you subtract immigration out of test scores, all of a sudden our test scores skyrocket. If you subtract immigration out of healthcare, all of a sudden we don't have nearly the size of the healthcare challenges our country faces. If you subtract immigration out of public safety, all of a sudden we don't have violent crime in so many of our cities. Issue after issue, we talk about these things they just happen to us. The schools just suddenly fail. Violent crime just suddenly explodes. The deficit just suddenly skyrockets. These are a result of social policy choices that we made through immigration.
I will tell you folks something here. I'll tell you folks something. I think this is probably going to surprise a lot of you. There's an entity called the Program for International Student Assessment. It's called PISA, P-I-S-A. And what it does is it takes the test scores of Americans and it compares them to Germans and Indians and the Chinese and the Japanese and the Norwegians. And so you can kind of see which country has the highest scoring student base. It compares how are our students doing versus their students doing. And it's sort of an international competition of sorts. Now, if you look at the PISA test scores for the United States of America, we rank something like 20th, 18th, maybe globally. We're 20th or 18th or something like that, highest ranking around the entire world. And okay, that's okay, could be better. However, if you break the United States down by race or ethnicity, American Asians are actually the highest scoring in the world. American Asians. They're the number one highest scoring racial or ethnic demographic and national demographic in the world. Asians in the United States of America. Number 6 in the world is American whites. White students in the United States of America are the 6th highest performing national and ethnic demographic in the entire world. We're up there with like Singapore, Taiwan, Japan, American Asians. I think the only other white demographic that scores more highly than us is maybe Estonians. So it's like Estonian whites, they're up there top 6. U.S. whites, U.S. Asians, we're up there top 6. And so then you kind of have to reconcile the difference. If U.S. Asians are number 1 and U.S. whites are number 6, why is U.S. as a whole number 20? Well, it's because not every group in the country is performing so highly, but that's a different conversation, I suppose. But just a little fun fact of the day, American whites as a group actually score very highly. We actually do very well. Our educational attainment is actually pretty high. So next time anybody says the American education system is terrible, everybody is stupid and nobody learns anything, well, I mean, obviously, everything can always be better. We can always improve on everything, right? However, when you just look at the stats, you look at the chart, you look at the comparison, it's really only certain groups in the United States of America that don't do so well. That's just the truth. Now, Stephen Miller is talking about some of the problems we have with third world immigrants specifically. I'm sure you will be happy to hear that deportations are underway really targeting Minnesota right now. Federal agents are now conducting armed raids of the homes of illegal aliens in Minnesota. Illegal aliens were reportedly renting rooms at various places, and now ICE is kicking in doors, snatching them out and deporting them back.
Shields up and guns drawn, Ring surveillance video shows more than a dozen armed federal agents descending on a Burnsville home on Saturday.
Wow.
A woman who lives there tells Fox 9 multiple Latino people who rent rooms there were arrested by ICE after being followed home from the store. A portion of the video shows one man being taken down in the driveway and another woman running inside to her child. We're told the 4 people taken into custody are now being held in immigration facilities out of state. That includes the parents of a 7-year-old boy.
You shouldn't be rolling around in unmarked vans. People have the right to know who's following them, and you can see there's fear.
Americans have a right to not have illegal aliens in our country. This guy, Matt Little, former state senator, Minnesotans, illegal aliens have a right to know whether or not they're going to be apprehended by ICE agents. How about American taxpayers, American citizens have a right to not have their country get invaded? What about that right? No, you don't care about that?
And the people that are getting out of the car in that video.
Former state senator and Lakeville Mayor Matt Little is running to represent this district in Congress. He said he's troubled by what he saw in the video and wants people to know their rights.
They certainly have a right to a hearing. They certainly have a right to a lawyer. They have a right to contact the, people in their lives that could.
They have a right to get the hell out of the country.
Help them out. You have all these rights, so make sure you're showing up and letting your neighbors know that they have rights.
Now, I did reach out to both DHS and ICE for more information about what exactly happened on Saturday, but I have not heard back from either of them yet. In the wake of this raid, the city of Burnsville did release a statement saying that they are aware of the immigration enforcement activities happening within their city, but that federal authorities, they often don't let local authorities know when these enforcement operations are going down.
Why would
and
they?
That their officers do not check people's immigration statuses.
The governor, Tim Walz, and all of these blue city mayors, they have time and time again come out and said, we are not going to work with ICE. We're not going to exchange information. We're not going to help you. We're not going to tell you where any illegal aliens are. In fact, really, they're aiding and abetting illegal aliens. So why in the hell would ICE call up the mayor and or the, whatever progressive sheriff they have in the city and say, hey, listen, we're going to do a raid on this apartment complex in 3 hours? Why they'll listen? If you're not going to work with them, why would they work with you? Why would they tip you off? That's unbelievable. We got to get these people out of here. Absolutely insane. But so we have seen really over the last week, maybe 10 days now, we have seen the Trump administration, ICE and DHS absolutely flood Minnesota. They are detaining and deporting dozens, hundreds of people. In fact, I want to show you something. This is a new update for all of you. I think you're going to like this. This is a new official government website called dhs.gov/wow. WOW. dhs.gov/wow. In case you want to go check this out for yourself, this is a public database where we, all of us, can take a look at the worst of the worst illegal aliens that ICE and DHS has been able to apprehend, detain, and deport. And there are, I believe, 12 individuals per page here. And they have 820 pages. Do the math in my head, that's like 9,000 and something. So almost 10, they have a public database of almost 10,000 of the country's most deadly, dangerous, violent, illegal aliens. And now it's public, you can go take a look at it. So I'm going to skip to page 3. We've got this guy. This is Jesus Tamaxte Tegchi. He was arrested in Gainesville, Georgia. Possession of weapon, possession of stolen property, amphetamine, possession, fraud, impersonation, battery, aggravated assault, crimes against a person, false statement, illegal re-entry, burglary. And you can see these people. And so we look at this guy. Shangyu Zhang, possession of a weapon. They're coming in from all over the place. This guy's name is Shi Di. He's got to be from China. Usman Momo, somewhere from Africa. burglary, possession. So listen, hey, it's not only Latin Americans. We got people coming in from all over the place. And now they're getting snatched up. And can I go to the final page? Now they're getting snatched up and deported. Vladimir Katayev, somewhere in Eastern Europe. Maybe he's Russian. I don't know. But there are almost 10,000 individual entries of people that we do not want in this country. Thank God. These are the worst of the worst. Smuggling aliens, weapon offenses, assault, public order crimes. You can go take a look at this. Now, speaking about immigration and mass migration and immigrants not assimilating, this is what Elon Musk was talking about. President Trump, earlier today, gave his thoughts on what is currently going on in Europe. So take a look at this. I think you'll like this.
Well, Europe is a different place.
What do you mean
by
that?
And if it keeps going the way it's going, Europe will not be, in my opinion, many of those countries will not be viable countries any longer. Their immigration policy is a disaster. What they're doing with immigration is a disaster. We had a disaster coming, but I was able to stop it. You know, we have no people coming through our borders now. 0, 7 months. I mean, who would believe 0? We went from millions of people, in some cases millions of people a month, but millions of people to no people.
That's not what Europe looks like.
The opposite, yeah. I know Europe, they're coming in from all parts of the world, not just the Middle East. They're coming in from the Congo, tremendous numbers of people coming from the Congo. And even worse, they're coming from prisons of the Congo and many other countries. And for some reason, they want to be politically correct, which actually I think is the opposite of politically correct. But they want to be politically correct, and they don't want to send them back to where they came from. And Europe is, if you take a look at Paris.
We need to start being politically incorrect. Don't you think? I think it is time. The era of political correctness is over. As Elon Musk said himself, the era of white guilt is over. It is okay if you are European to say, let's say you're a German guy. It is okay if you're a German guy to say, actually, I want Germany to be predominantly German. Actually, I want Germany to predominantly be for white ethnic Germans. If you're a German person, that is okay. You don't need to feel bad about saying that. If you're a Swedish guy, it is okay for you to say, I want Sweden to be full predominantly of white ethnic Swedish people. That is okay. What about America? It is okay for you to say, I want America to be predominantly composed of white ethnic Americans, as it was up until 1965, by the way. This was our explicit immigration policy up until 1965. It is okay to say that. There's nothing wrong with it. Doesn't mean you hate anybody else. It doesn't mean you're full of hate. It doesn't mean you're a hateful person. Of course not. It means you want your country and your people to survive and flourish and blossom in the way, listen, does anybody bat an eye if a Congolese person says that I want the Congo to be for Congolese people? No, of course not. Why would they? Does anybody bat an eye if a Japanese person says I want Japan to be for Japanese people? No, of course not. It's fine.
It's a much different place. I loved Paris. It's a much different place than it was. If you take a look at London, you have a mayor named Khan. He's a horrible mayor. He's an incompetent mayor, but he's a horrible, vicious, disgusting mayor. I think he's done a terrible job. London's a different place. I love London. I love London. And I hate to see it happen. You know, my roots are in Europe, as you know.
Right.
And I hate to see that happen. This is one of the great places in the world, and they're allowing people just to come in and unchecked, unvetted. Well, Europe is a...
So I will tell you something here. Let me tell you a little bit of personal story. I was in London, must have been 6 years ago. I was on a work trip, and I was staying in a hotel in downtown London, and it totally caught me off guard. I couldn't personally believe it. Everywhere, like I'm not trying to be like hyperbolic Mr. Racist guy here, but everywhere in downtown London there were African immigrants kind of loitering on the sidewalks. This is downtown London, just kind of African immigrants loitering everywhere. They were publicly drinking alcohol, and they were also oftentimes getting in fights, street fights, like just everywhere, totally belligerent. There was another thing they were doing that I had never seen before in my life. They would get these little CO2 or some gas, some condensed gas, little silver canisters, and they would pop open the top and they would empty the gas into balloons. They'd have a balloon and they would empty the gas into a balloon, and then they would stand on the side of the sidewalk, downtown London, broad daylight, everybody's walking around, and they would sit there and they would huff the balloon. You'd see dozens of African immigrants downtown London huffing gas. I don't even know what type of gas, huffing it out of the balloon, getting high, doing drugs, doing this drug. And then by the end of the night, now it's 9, 10, 11 p.m. and everybody's kind of going home and going to bed. It's a Tuesday night, 10 p.m. They would just throw these silver canisters on the side of the road on the ground. And there would be, by 11 or 12, there would be just like billions of empty little gas canisters, silver gas canisters, and balloons, empty balloons and empty gas canisters everywhere, littering the sidewalks. And they would have to have, I watched it happen out of my hotel window 2 nights in a row. They would have street cleaning crews come down in the middle of the night on the graveyard shift with shovels, and they would have big vehicles come down the road, and then every single night they'd have to scoop up heaps and piles of balloons and gas canisters, little silver gas canisters, because they're doing drugs on the side of the road. Every day, all day, just standing around loitering and doing this, and then getting high, and then fighting each other, taking a break, getting high, punching and fighting each other, taking a break. And that's what they would do all day. 12 hours a day. Loiter on the side of the road. It's a Wednesday afternoon. Get high and punch each other. Get high and punch each other. And I knew London was bad. I knew it was bad. And this was 6 years ago, by the way, so it's probably even worse now, but I couldn't believe it. It blew my mind. And of course, if you're walking around, they're looking at you aggressively. They're like mean mugging you if you're walking around. You got to watch your wallet, make sure nobody pickpockets it. It's bad. It's bad. It's really bad. And so when President Trump is talking about this, yeah, Europe, listen, at least here in the U.S., we have kind of a movement going. We're trying to get these people out. We have stopped the inflow. The migration has stopped. And now we are trying to get these people out. In Europe, the problem is they don't really have that. They have not stopped the flow. The European Union, a lot of the individual countries are still governed by far-left politicians. And the problem is not resolving. Really, it's getting worse. And so I think we should, of course, we're always complaining, Trump, we want more deportations. It's very easy to complain about the failures of the Trump administration, I guess. That seems like what everybody is doing these days. Not me so much, you guys know, but, there's a lot of criticism. However, look over at Europe. Look over at Europe and see how bad things are. At least we have stopped the flow, and now we're just starting to get some of these people out, because it could be so much worse. It could be so much worse. Go to Europe. Go to London. Go to Frankfurt in Germany. Go to Paris. Go to Paris. You want to be right in the thick of it? Go to Paris. It's bad. It's very bad. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you all very much for tuning in today. I had a special surprise, but I think I got a message from my wife. I think I need to wrap it up early. I'm going to save the special surprise for tomorrow. So my apologies. Special surprise tomorrow, not today. I do apologize. I want to say thank you all very much for tuning in on a lovely Tuesday night, I believe. We are back full steam ahead every single day, all day, nonstop. Thank you very much for being here. If you could do me a favor, make sure to like and to subscribe. It does mean a lot. Really helps a lot. We've got the best community in the world. I genuinely believe that. So everybody have a great night, and God bless. And I'll see you folks tomorrow. We'll have another video and another live broadcast. Everybody have a great night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you very much for tuning in. Take care.